Mexico is feeling the wrath of a powerful drug cartel after an army operation resulted in the death of its leader. Known as El Mencho, he was one of the most wanted men in both Mexico and the United States. His killing has sparked violence across the country, resulting in dozens of deaths, including several Mexican National Guard troops.
At 3 a.m. in the mountains of western Mexico, helicopters once circled a remote ranch believed to hide one of the most hunted men in the world. Inside reinforced bunkers guarded by heavily armed security rings and protected by early warning lookouts stretching miles into the countryside, lived a man known by one name that echoed across borders: El Mencho. Born Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, El Mencho rose from rural poverty in Jalisco, Mexico, to become the leader of one of the most violent and fastest growing criminal organizations of the 21st century, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, or CJNG. Today, he is considered one of the most powerful drug traffickers in the world, a figure who transformed a regional crime group into a global criminal empire operating across multiple continents. But how did he do it, and why has he become one of the most wanted fugitives on the planet? El Mencho was born in the 1960s in a small farming community in Michoacan. Like many young men from rural Mexico during that period, economic opportunity was limited. Reports indicate he eventually traveled to the United States in his youth, where he was later arrested on drug-related charges and deported. That early exposure to both U.S. law enforcement systems and drug trafficking networks would shape his future strategy. When he returned to Mexico, the drug trade was already evolving. Powerful organizations like the Sinaloa Cartel and Los Zetas were battling for control of trafficking routes. El Mencho initially aligned with existing criminal groups before eventually becoming part of the Milenio Cartel, which operated in western Mexico. When federal pressure fractured that organization, a power vacuum opened and El Mencho stepped into it. In the early 2000s, CJNG emerged almost overnight. Unlike older cartels that grew gradually, CJNG expanded aggressively and publicly. They released heavily armed propaganda videos, displayed military-style formations, and demonstrated tactical firepower rarely seen outside war zones. Their message was clear: they were not just another cartel, they were a new generation. El Mencho's leadership style combined ruthless violence with calculated expansion. CJNG seized control of critical Pacific coast ports like Manzanillo, which became key entry points for precursor chemicals used in synthetic drug production. These chemicals, often sourced from Asia, allowed CJNG to manufacture methamphetamine and fentanyl at industrial scale. This was a turning point. Like traditional cartels depended heavily on coca cultivation and long supply chains from South America. CJNG focused on synthetics, which could be produced anywhere with access to chemicals and laboratories. This shift allowed them to dominate the methamphetamine market and later expand aggressively into fentanyl distribution. Within a decade, CJNG became one of Mexico's most powerful criminal organizations, rivaling the Sinaloa Cartel in territory and influence. Their footprint extended into Europe, Asia, Australia, and nearly every major U.S. distribution corridor. El Mencho's name became synonymous with violence. Under his command, CJNG was linked to brazen attacks on Mexican security forces, including ambushes on military convoys and even the downing of a military helicopter in 2015.
It is good news overall, right? One of the most bloodthirsty criminals in Mexico has been taken out of the picture. They wanted to capture him. He ended up dying in the gunfight. However, as your report mentions, the great problem that we've been through for over 20 years at this point is if you kill the drug leader of a cartel organization, what you get is many leaders in a fractured cartel. It's like cutting off the Hydra's head. That's why President Claudia Sheinbaum, I think, has done a better job in moving through intelligence, trying to cut off the finances. But when the intelligence came in, I think the capture of El Mencho was too good to resist, and so they moved.
These actions signaled a willingness to directly confront the state, a rare escalation even in cartel history. But violence was only part of the strategy. Financial intelligence agencies later reported that CJNG operated complex money laundering networks across multiple countries. Shell companies, real estate holdings, agricultural exports, and even legitimate businesses were allegedly used to wash billions in drug proceeds. Unlike older cartel structures built around family networks, CJNG reportedly operated with corporate-like hierarchy and decentralized cells. Despite massive government efforts, El Mencho has avoided capture for years. The US government has placed multi-million-dollar rewards for information leading to his arrest. He faces federal indictments in several US jurisdictions on charges including drug trafficking, firearms offenses, and organized crime conspiracy. Mexican authorities have launched numerous operations targeting his inner circle. Many high-ranking CJNG members have been arrested or killed. Yet El Mencho remains elusive. Reports suggest he rarely uses phones, frequently relocates between rural strongholds, and relies relies on tight family-based security layers. Some intelligence assessments indicate he suffers from health issues, but there has been no confirmed capture or verified death. CJNG's power structure has also evolved. While El Mencho remains the symbolic and strategic head, operational control is believed to be distributed among trusted commanders to prevent collapse if leadership is disrupted. This adaptability has allowed the organization to survive sustained pressure. In recent years, global attention has focused heavily on fentanyl trafficking, with US officials linking synthetic opioid flows to Mexican cartels, including CJNG. The drug's potency and low production costs have fueled overdose crises in multiple countries, bringing intensified scrutiny to supply chains tied to organizations like CJNG. International cooperation between US, Mexican, and European authorities has increased. Asset seizures, extraditions, and sanctions have targeted CJNG's financial infrastructure. Entire business networks suspected of laundering cartel money have been blacklisted under international narcotics trafficking sanctions. Still, CJNG remains active. Experts say El Mencho's rise represents a new model of organized crime, one built not only on territorial control but on supply chain dominance, financial sophistication, and global partnership. His organization demonstrated how synthetic drugs can transform trafficking economics, reducing dependency on crop cycles and expanding profit margins dramatically. But the story of El Mencho is not just about one man. It is about how organized crime evolves when markets shift, when technology advances, and when enforcement pressure forces adaptation. As long as demand for narcotics remains high, cartels will innovate. The pursuit of El Mencho continues. Intelligence agencies monitor financial flows, communications patterns, and supply routes. High-profile arrests within CJNG have disrupted regional operations, but dismantling a network of this size requires more than capturing one leader. Whether El Mencho is eventually arrested, extradited, or replaced by another figure, his impact on the modern drug trade is undeniable. He helped accelerate the transition towards synthetic dominance. He expanded cartel influence beyond traditional trafficking lanes, and he forced governments to rethink strategies against transnational organized crime. The question now is not only where he is, but what comes next. If you want more deep investigations into global criminal networks, cartel power shifts, and the real mechanics behind international trafficking operations, subscribe and turn on notifications. These stories are complex, and understanding them is the first step in understanding how global security challenges evolve. Stay informed, stay aware, and remember, organized crime rarely disappears. It adapts. El Mencho, born Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, is considered one of the most powerful cartel leaders of the modern era. Rising from rural poverty in western Mexico, he transformed the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, or CJNG, into a global criminal force within a decade. Unlike older cartels that relied mainly on cocaine routes, CJNG focused heavily on synthetic drugs like methamphetamine and fentanyl, allowing production at industrial scale. This shift changed the economics of trafficking and expanded profits dramatically. Under his leadership, CJNG became known for both rapid expansion and extreme violence. The group reportedly seized control of key Pacific ports to access precursor chemicals from overseas suppliers. At the same time, it confronted rivals and security forces with military-style tactics. One of the most shocking moments linked to the cartel was the 2015 attack that brought down a Mexican military helicopter, signaling its willingness to challenge the state directly. Financially, CJNG allegedly built complex laundering systems involving shell companies, real estate, agriculture exports, and front businesses. International authorities have sanctioned entities connected to the group, freezing assets and targeting financial pipelines. The US government has offered multi-million-dollar rewards for information leading to El Mencho's capture, while Mexican forces have conducted repeated operations against his inner circle. Despite arrests and seizures, El Mencho has remained elusive. Intelligence reports suggest he moves frequently between rural strongholds and relies on trusted security layers. Even with intensified global cooperation and pressure on fentanyl supply chains, CJNG continues to operate across multiple continents. His story represents more than one man's rise. It reflects how organized crime adapts to demand, technology, and enforcement pressure. Whether captured or not, El Mencho reshaped the modern drug trade by accelerating the global dominance of synthetic narcotics.